Hello, everybody. Welcome to my live show. I'm DelusionDispeller. I've been a life coach since about 2000. I always get 19 and 9 mixed up. 2009. Officially life coaching for, gosh, about the last probably 5 years, maybe. I graduated from college with a bachelor's and master's degree back in 2012, I believe it was. So I've been at it for a little while. Anyways, I've been making videos since 2009 at least, and I have been helping people out. So I'm hoping maybe my videos will help you as well. Anyways, this is our live show, and today we're going to be talking about autism in relationships, and this is part 2. We did part 1 last week. We've been trying to meet every Saturday at about 11 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern, and 10 o'clock a.m. Central Time to bring you these live broadcasts. And I just wanted to continue with our talk on autism today. My voice is a little raspy because I drank some milk, but overall I'm doing pretty good. Just a quick update on me. I have a possibility of getting a car. I just need to figure out how I'm going to save up the money to get it. I do have a GoFundMe page, so if you're interested in helping me out, I'd greatly appreciate that. Or if you know anybody that can, that'd be great too. It's not going to be like any fancy type of car. It's about $500, so every little bit helps. Anyways, I can explain that all to you if you want to assist me with that. It'll just give me a little bit more autonomy and independence and not have to rely on everybody to traipse me around everywhere. Anyhow, on that note, let's go right into the autism information. And remember, there's a short Q&A right after our live show today. So we talked about a little bit about autism last week. And I encourage you, if I happen to get any of this information wrong, backwards, twisted, or anything of the sort, that you will let me know. And definitely feel free to contribute and input into the text. Give me a like, a thumbs up, a heart, whatever, to let me know you're here. Tell me who you are, etc. I'm going to try to be staring at you through the little light thing on the camera here. It's kind of disconcerting because I have bifocals, so trying to look up and down at my notes and at you is a bit of a challenge, but I will do my best, I promise. All right. We talked about autism just in general last week. I'm going to get into more of the specifics on the traits of autism today. So getting at my notes here. Okay, autistic people do not automatically make assumptions. So in other words, if an autistic person sees you lay down and go like this or something, they don't automatically think, oh wow, she's not feeling good. She probably, needs some medicine or needs to see a doctor or anything like that. What they'll do is they will assess the situation and they'll go through all the possibilities that could be happening to you at that moment. So they may think, well, she's just laying down because she wants to take a nap. She just likes that position, laying down. They might think that you're laying down because you're depressed, but it might not occur to them automatically that you're laying down because you're ill. So if you're married to or dating or in the family with somebody with autistic spectrum disorder, you may not get the care that you need because they don't automatically assume that you need it, in other words. So you may find yourself kind of feeling a bit alone at times in a relationship with somebody with autism because of the fact that they don't always read between the lines or read the underlying meanings of things or assume the underlying meanings of things. They try to figure it out, and if it doesn't make sense, then they might ask you about it, but 9 times out of 10, I think they just go on to doing something else. All right, we're trying to act on it as they think. Maybe they'll lay next to you thinking you just want to lay down. All right, people with autism can learn to be social. It's a struggle for them. They struggle with being social, but they can learn things. They are very good at imitation. So if they're having trouble, for instance, in a social setting of shaking hands or talking to other people, they learn by practice. And a lot of children that are autistic, if it's caught early enough, can be socialized and you would have to sit with them day after day and basically teach them, okay, in this setting, this is what you do. You need to shake their hand. You need to say, how are you? You need to introduce yourself. These are all things they don't automatically do. And it takes a lot of practice for them, a lot more than the neurotypical person. Autistic people ask a lot of questions, and especially the why question. They want to know why. Now, I think I mentioned last week, this one guy on the bus that rides the bus with me, he doesn't necessarily ask why with the intention of getting an answer. He'll just say why after every sentence he says. So he'll say, yeah, I went to the store. Why? I needed to go and get a new tie. Why? Because I'm going to this wedding and they require formal attire. Why? Because I don't know. I think I have to do that because it just makes sense to me. And last week I lost my job. Why? Because they didn't like the way I was doing something. And it's always why after everything he says. He's very redundant. He's more of an Asperger type of person than he is just autism, but it's just his way. It's a mannerism. And like I said, there is no one size fits all with autism anyways. Sometimes people with autism hear voices telling them what to do and how to do it. I don't think it's quite like schizophrenia, but it's like they have this constant inner guide directing them. And you can imagine if you didn't automatically assume how to do things, you would need something as an inner guide to tell you, well, maybe I should go and say hi to that person, or maybe I should not do such and such. They have this inner thing inside of them, and I don't really understand how that works, but maybe somebody out there that's more familiar with autism can explain that in a further way. I don't portend to have all the answers on autism. As you know, if you know me, my thing is narcissistic personality disorder. That's my bent. That is my whole thrust. That's the main thing that I started the channel about. So autism is just one topic I decided to cover, and I may be getting some things a little bit skewed. So I expect, if you see that, let me know. I'm very teachable, and I like to learn about things. All right. People with autism struggle with taking turns. They don't grasp the concept of, okay, they were next in line, so I should let them go first. They'll often kind of barge in at times and kind of interrupt people. They're not rude. They're not meaning to be rude. They just lack that social skill. So they really, it's not a back and forth conversation a lot of time with somebody with autism. They tend to monopolize conversations. And it's usually all about them and what's going on with them and how you are affecting them. So it almost seems a bit narcissistic. And in fact, people with autism often get diagnosed or misdiagnosed with having narcissistic personality disorder, or at least the traits of narcissism, because it does seem very self-centered, but they're really not meaning to be, like that, selfish or self-centered. I need to check something real quick here. I'm not sure if this will work or not. I'm trying to see if I can see the comments on the page, and perhaps when somebody comments, I'll be able to see it. All right, anyways, just wanted to check that. Okay, the next thing is people with autism often have trouble with communication over the phone. I think that is because they can't see the person's face, or they just don't feel as connected, which for a person with autism, they really have trouble with connection anyways. But on the phone, you can imagine it takes away the whole idea of being able to see somebody and touch somebody and be there. So it's a little bit confusing with them. I think that's probably why a lot of the autistic people I know prefer to communicate in text, because they can sit and analyze what you're saying. But when you're just there in their face, I don't know, they just have trouble with that. And on the phone, it's just your voice, so they can't see your mannerisms. I hope that made sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe some prefer text, some prefer in person. I just know there's a lack of communication and connection when it comes to people with autism. Like I said, I am not an expert on autism. I'm just sharing information that I've researched and studied and experienced from the people that I know have autism. Most of the people I know prefer to text. And no, they do not like talking on the phone because they just somehow can't grasp where you're coming from without your facial features. And then even then they can't always read your facial features. All right. They have a fear of the future. A lot of them seem to be a bit paranoid. It's anxiety. They have very high anxiety, people with autism. Most of the people I know that are autistic suffer from anxiety, probably because they know they can't really connect in the neurotypical way, and it makes them feel, on edge and nervous that they may be saying or doing something wrong. They panic if they know that they need to be with somebody, even if it's somebody that they know personally. Yeah, it does depend on the degree. Thanks, Shawnee. Like I said, I'm not an expert. You probably would know more about that because you have children that have different varying degrees of autism on the spectrum. And feel free to contribute if you choose any of that information that you have. All right. So people with autism are nervous about social interactions, even with people they know. Um, I really don't know how this affects them. Maybe as they're getting ready, they're like really nervous and flapping their hands like this. This is one of the autism things that people do. Um, they might be kind of jumping back and forth or like rocking nerves, we would call it. But for them, it's something their brain does because they know that something new is happening and they're very not at ease with it, I guess you could say. All right, so interactions. That's the biggest thing with autism is they have a lot of trouble with social interactions. All right, I want to try to keep this brief, so I'm going to talk kind of quick here, and then I want to offer the Q&A at the end. All right, autism, people with autism need to learn to follow rules. It's not something that comes naturally to them. They don't say, well, I woke up this morning, I need to put my clothes on, I need to brush my teeth, I need to do this or that, unless they're taught. Now, once it becomes a ritual, they have to do that every single time. And as long as they know what's expected of them, they do it. And God help you if you deviate from that. If you woke up Johnny, told him, first we brush our teeth, and then we put our clothes on, after we eat, brush our teeth, put the clothes on, and then walk out the door, make sure we have our school books, and the next day you're running late, so he didn't have time to brush his teeth. He may sit there and throw a fit because you forgot the whole toothbrushing regimen. They are very regimented and very routine, and if you interrupt their routine, it's very, very bad. Can be. All right. This was interesting to me. I didn't know this. People with autism often mix up senses or contribute their senses to words. So whereas we read a word and it's just a word on a piece of paper, um, yeah, meltdowns, exactly. If it's a word on a piece of paper, they may say that it smells a certain way. Like, oh, wow, that car smells good. And you're like, it's just a word, car, on a piece of paper. Yeah, but it smells good. To an autistic person, you might see them sniffing at the word car on a piece of paper, because to them it has a smell. Something may sound like the word, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an abstract word, wall. They might put their ear up to it because it sounds a certain way. What they do does not neurotypically make sense, but to them it makes perfect sense. And as I always say, a person's perception is their reality. It doesn't have to be yours, and you might think they're nuts for what they do. But to somebody with autism, which I believe is a biological disorder, correct me if I'm wrong, Shawnee, if it's biological or if it's something else. It's something with the brain. It just doesn't function right. To them, that seems totally, that's just their world. Words smell, words sound like something on the paper. All right. They're very, let's see, clear rules, boundaries, routines. That's what she was saying. Yeah, I already kind of mentioned that. They freak out if you change their plans, if you change a time of something, if you change a date, if you say you're going to be there and you don't show up, they freak out, start getting angry or anxious, paranoid, whatever. Because to them, that is written in stone and you better not deviate from it. Very black and white thinking. Something either is or it isn't. Someone either is or isn't. Again, this can be misinterpreted as narcissism because they are very black and white thinkers. I believe borderlines also have black and white thinking. It's just very definite. Um, and they are very tactless at times. If you ask a person with autism, how does this dress look on me? They'll say it's too big, it's ugly, um, it's too green, it's too heavy, it's too wrinkled. I mean, they don't care. It's not that they don't care like compassion wise, but they are literally answering your question literally. So they're going to point out what they see, and they're not going to consider how I might make this person feel by telling them, that it looks too bulky or whatever. They also, you may be asking them, how do I look? And you want them to be specific about, well, you look nice, you look pretty. They may look at you and say, good, or okay, and give you very short one-word answers. Or they might start picking at you like, I don't like your hair. You're too short. You're too fat. Your eyes are too blue. Just like very definite things. And you might look at them and think, well, I just meant, how did I look? Like, do I look nice? Am I ready to go out? They don't think that way. They think literally, how do I look? Look at me. Tell me how I look. So they're going to comment on very definite, specific features of your face, features of your body, wrinkles if you have them. They may say, too many wrinkles. Okay, that's not what I asked. How do I look? Meaning, do I look nice? Well, to them, you just ask them literally how you look. All right. People with autism lack understanding about danger. This is very concerning because, especially with a child, they have no concept of, some of them, don't touch the stove, it's too hot. You might want to come in now, it's too cold out. And they're playing and having a good time in the snow, drawing tons and tons of snow angels because they do everything by a pattern. And you're calling them in because it's freezing out. You're like, come on in, it's too cold. And they have a meltdown because they have no perception that it's something degrees below zero. All they know is they're doing this repetitive snow angel building and they don't want to be interrupted. Also, busy traffic. They may run out into the street. They see a cat or something and it's interesting to them. And they'll just run right out into the street and not pay attention that there's a truck coming or something. Sharp objects. They like to collect things. Maybe they have no concept that what they're collecting is near something that's sticking out that's sharp, and they may jab their hand on it or something. Something like that, but they really do lack discretion when it comes to danger, so they have to be watched very carefully. All right, moving right along here. Yeah, they need to learn how far to stand when they're talking to someone. They can get really up in your face like this, and it's really disconcerting and uncomfortable when somebody is staring at you like that closely. So again, that's a social aspect they need to be taught. It's not something that comes naturally or that they even think about. So, all right. Here's some more problems. It's just a list of them. I'm just going to read them. I won't comment a whole lot on them because our time is wrapping up here, and I know attention spans are only about 15-20 minutes, trying to keep things pretty short so you grasp what I'm saying. This will be the last part of the autism discussion, by the way. I'll be doing something new next week. I don't know what yet, but I'm sure Shawnee will come up with something she wants me to research, or I'll find something on my own. All right, they have repetitive eating habits, so they got to eat spaghetti and meatballs every single dinner time. That's just how it is. And if you give them spaghetti and you usually put cheese on it, you better put cheese and you better put the right amount on there. If it's a tablespoon and you measure out a tablespoon and you put 2 on there, they will have a meltdown because God help you, you put more than 1 tablespoon on there. All right, so don't deviate from the typical routine of eating. They may have tics. Like, what I mean by tics is not tics like the bug that I absolutely hate and fear with my life. They have tics like they might jiggle their head like that or blink. A lot of them blink, twitch their nose. Sometimes they rock like that. They do the hand flapping. I think I mentioned that. There's different tics they can have. Sometimes they're vocal tics where they stutter. Some of them may also have Tourette's syndrome, where they blurt out words out of nowhere. It just depends. Like Shawnee said, there's different levels of it. It depends. All right, gastrointestinal problems, that goes without saying. If they aren't aware of how fast they're eating, for instance, they could give themselves an upset stomach. They may be eating the wrong things. When mom's not looking, they may be taking things that upset their stomach and cause gastrointestinal problems. They have poor muscle tone a lot of times. Um, I have somebody in the family, I won't mention any names, but when he was a little kid and I used to babysit him, I could take his arms and like he would swing his arms a lot. And I could literally take his arms, gently, of course, and put them all the way behind his back and touch them together like there was no muscle tone whatsoever. It was like Rubber Man. And to this day, this kid has so many issues. And I told the parents at the time something is wrong with him. They didn't have it looked at. And now, years later, he's got all kinds of issues. Okay, so poor muscle tone, something to look for in people with autism. Eating disorders. I won't go into that. You know what that means. They have low immunity sometimes, so they get sick quite a bit. They can be diagnosed as hypochondriacs, paranoid about germs. They tend to isolate themselves sometimes, go into a depression. They can be very anxious, have a short fuse. If there's too much sensory stimuli, too much going on in the environment, they can become very upset. If they lose their primary caretaker, it is very, very hard on them. And I know somebody right now going through that. In fact, certain people will have somebody around, even if they're not a healthy someone, just to have someone in their life. So that's not good. That's toxic. But they don't know how to relate without their primary caregiver because they're so dependent. They can be obsessed with hobbies and have odd collections. They are overly focused on topics, fascinated by studying people, great imitators of people, great mimics. If you ask an autistic person what they feel, want, or feel, decide, if they answer whatever they tell you, take it at face value. They cannot lie. An autistic person very rarely to never lies. They can't do it because they're so factual. They can be very creative and orderly. They have an innocence about them. They seem very childlike a lot of times. When we observe autistic people, like with each other, they're rarely ever cruel to anybody else. I have a friend that's autistic. Well, he has Asperger's, and he is like the nicest person you ever want to meet. He just doesn't always connect things mentally. They're very trusting, and sometimes they trust the wrong people and can be taken advantage of and mistreated and abused. They are self-soothers, so they comfort themselves a lot of times. They tend to relate only on extreme feelings at times. They often pity their abuser because they struggle with feeling resentful. They feel bad for the person abusing them because they don't have a concept of being able to say, I hate what you're doing to me, I don't like you, you're dangerous. They pity the person that's abusing them, which is kind of twisted, but that's how their mind works. Black and white thinking, we talked about that. Criticism can cause autistic people to feel like their world is coming to an end. They don't deal well with you telling them no or telling them that's not how it's supposed to be. They see purpose in everything. Everything has a reason. I was watching Simon Birch yesterday. If you haven't seen it, it's an excellent movie. I don't think he was autistic, but he definitely felt that everything and everybody had a purpose, and people with autism do. People with autism love words and love colors because they see them as actual active living things, beings. So the color green to a person with Asperger's or maybe autism is a friend. And so they take a certain color and they love it and they treat it like a friend. They're eccentric in their writing and doing their hair and their dressing. So they're just different and they look different and they act different, and it might make you uncomfortable, but they deserve dignity and respect as well as any other neurotypical person would. Now I'm going to end here. I asked a question to my friend who has Asperger's. Do you believe it's easier to have a relationship with a neurotypical person versus a person with autism? What he said was, it's easier for me to have a relationship with someone who has autism because we understand each other and we never put each other down. I thought that was a beautiful response. Actually, it makes you kind of think about us neurotypical people who we just are nitpicky and we notice the bad in others a lot. I'm guilty of it too. There's some people that just rub me the wrong way. With an autistic person, rarely do you ever find that. I mean, they're opinionated sometimes, but they really don't have the issues that neurotypical people have as far as like being nasty, lying to somebody, mistreating somebody. They just don't, because they spend so much time trying to learn to interact with the world, that I think that just takes up their time when they would be spending complaining or dealing with, the stuff that neurotypical people do. All right, anyways, on that note, I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A. I'll open it up for the next couple minutes. If I start seeing some comments come up, I will answer those comments. If not, I will conclude and post the video. So does anybody here, if there is anybody here, have any questions at all? Shawnee, do you have any questions or any comments? I see there's 3 comments here. Let me see if it'll let me see them actually. Okay. Oh, I don't see any. All right, anybody? I see now there's 2 people here. Any of the 2 people have any questions, comments? I'm really wondering why my system doesn't let me see comments, but for some reason it doesn't like cooperating. All right, I'm going to try to type in, see if anybody else can see this. And in the future, I will find an easier forum to use than this type of thing, because it doesn't like cooperating for me. But for now, we're Facebook Live. Anyway, while I'm waiting for some comments and getting ready to conclude here, because we're almost done, I just want to invite all of you, if you haven't already seen it, I have a YouTube channel. It's DelusionDispeller. And I talk about narcissism, borderline personality disorder, and I even have some playlists where I talk about my life. I also offer recipes, weight loss information. I've been doing intermittent fasting. I discussed that a little bit. I've lost quite a bit of weight myself with it, and maybe I can help you. And if you need any life coaching sessions, I do charge a small fee, but we can work that out. And you can reach me at DelusionDispeller@gmail.com. And I think maybe that is all I have to say for today. I will try to be back here next week, probably same time, which will be 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. If that changes, I will let you know. And I guess we are done. So I will conclude with that, and you all have a great day. Be blessed. And remember, if you meet somebody with autism, be kind. They really can't help how they see things and do things, and that you might be the friend that they really need. All right, well, have a wonderful day, and I look forward to hearing from you. Leave me a comment, leave me questions. It's not too late. I always check texts, and I always check my YouTube channel and my Facebook. So we'll see you soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.